everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Late Night in Canada. I'm your host, Clare Blackwood. Why is it a special episode, you ask? Because it happens to be the last episode of my first season. That's right, Late Night in Canada is wrapping up for the summer so we can all get a break from the constant stream of terrible news and do fun things instead, like going to the beach, or in the case of anyone who's been following said constant stream of terrible news, therapy. Tonight, I'll be talking to Danny Stover, the social media coordinator of The Period Purse, a charity dedicated to promoting menstrual equity and reducing stigma around periods through education and advocacy. But first, let's get to the news with This Week in the North. On Monday, it was announced that anyone who is not experiencing symptoms and has not been in contact with someone who is COVID-19 positive would be able to obtain a rapid COVID test at Shoppers Drug Marts across Alberta and Ontario. And because our governments have been pleading with us for over a year now to do everything in our power to keep ourselves, our families, and our communities safe, while at the same time denying low-income workers paid sick leave to take time off work to go and get tested if they feel sick, the rapid tests will of course be free of charge. And what? $40? Are you fucking kidding me? What kind of sick, sadistic asshole would want to make a profit during a pandemic? Oh, Galen Weston, CEO of Loblaws, owner of the Shoppers Drug Mart franchise, and a guy who looks like midlife crisis Harry Potter? Yeah, right, that makes sense. In breaking news, eat the goddamn rich. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Trudeau announced that his government would be investing $200 million in Resilience Biotechnologies Incorporated, a Mississauga-based medical facility to help it manufacture mRNA vaccines so that Canada can be better prepared for future pandemics. The owner of the facility stated that Trudeau only agreed to fund vaccine production after he was assured that the company could not use the money to instead build a time machine to help Trudeau go back and invest in facilities when he actually should have. Also on Tuesday, Ontario Health Minister and woman explaining how it's really sad that your family member died. However, Christine Elliott stated that the province's upcoming reopening framework would not be color-coded like the last one, but couldn't give any more specifics because it wasn't ready yet.
I would say very soon. We have been working with the Chief Medical Officer of Health and the medical experts on a safe and careful reopening of Ontario.
Inside government sources revealed that the reason for the delay was that Elliott was waiting on Doug Ford to choose shapes or sizes for a framework that made the most sense to him. On Wednesday, a Toronto homeless encampment that had sheltered around 15 people for the last year was raided and destroyed by dozens of police officers on horseback and bikes, city security, bulldozers, and city officials. Multiple people were arrested for protesting the encampment removal, prompting Mayor John Tory to offer his 2 cents on the issue, which I'm sure, given how poorly the city has managed the homeless crisis during the pandemic, was sympathetic and not at all full of utter bullshit.
I find it profoundly unacceptable. There were by best estimates, about 15 people resident in the encampment at Lamport Stadium when the officials arrived there after plenty of notice to try to clear that encampment. Some of them had agreed to accept indoor housing, but there then seemed to be many more people materialized there, and they engaged in activities that resulted in the assaulting of police officers, the throwing of bottles and rocks, and I find this unacceptable in our city. Unacceptable.
Oh, no, John, you absolutely do not get to dictate what's unacceptable here. Want to know what's unacceptable? The fact that your world-class city has a homeless population of over 10,000 people and growing. The fact that the systems put in place to help the homeless are often dangerous, underfunded, and understaffed. The fact that your haircut makes you look like a man auditioning for the musical Grease. Where are they now? The homeless in the encampment had been informed a week before that they could face a $10,000 fine if they refused to clear out. And look, I don't have to tell you how fucked up that is. If you've been living in a public park for the last year, the threat of someone trying to take such a laughably huge amount of money from you that you clearly do not have would be a joke if it weren't horrifyingly cruel. That's like if society collapsed into a lawless dystopian hellscape and your landlord slid in a note under your door saying, next month's rent is $1 billion and 5 yachts, and if you don't pay me, I'll kick you out into cannibal territory. What are you gonna do? Start a GoFundMe for yacht money? No, you're gonna enjoy your last month of cannibal-free living and hope that your landlord changes his mind or gets eaten before the next rent check is due. All this to say, am I advocating for eating John Tory's flesh in broad daylight to make a point? No, that would be wrong, and he looks very stringy. However, I am saying when the cannibal apocalypse happens, let's give him a tent and see how he does. A group representing the dairy industry in Quebec stated on Wednesday that it is looking to obtain special designation status for poutine, which would make the popular food item a Quebec-specific product. So basically, it'll only be poutine if it's from the Poutine region of Canada. Otherwise, it's just sparkling drunk food. The big story on Thursday was, of course, the reveal of Ontario's new reopening framework. The roadmap to reopen is comprised of 3 steps depending on vaccination rates, case and ICU numbers, and positivity rates, and is set to begin roughly June 14th. And for those of us who looked at the chart and noted that we would be waiting almost another month for outdoor activities like camping, day camps, and personal training, worry not. Doug Ford announced that as of the weekend, all of us regular people would be able to participate in totally regular, non-rich people things like tennis, golf, and taking our boats out of our private marinas. And if those activities aren't for you, you'll be pleased to know that Doug is also now allowing croquet on the family estate, falconry, and hunting the poor for sport on your private island, as long as all the murdering is done outdoors. In other Thursday news, the Île aux Tourtes Bridge, a major connection point between Montreal and Ontario, was unexpectedly shut down. When questioned about the reason for the closure, Quebec authorities stated that it was definitely because of structural issues and definitely not the first step in our plan to finally separate Quebec from the rest of you filthy Englishmen. To end the week on a hopeful note, as of Friday, Canada has officially surpassed the US in terms of percentage of people who have received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Yes, that's right. We're back, baby. They're not beating us anymore. It's been a rough couple of months, but we can once again raise the flag of moral superiority and pretend that we're better than them in every way, casually setting aside the fact that we share so many of the same issues that we can pretend don't exist, because occasionally our government will make placatingly empty feminist gestures and desperate promises it doesn't follow up on. Woo! I made myself sad. Here's a video of a panda stuck under a milk crate. This has been This Week in the North. My guest tonight is Dani Stover, the social media coordinator of The Period Purse. Her organization works to reduce stigma around menstruation and make positive impacts in marginalized communities through the use of community support, free period products, education, advocacy, and more. We chatted about how The Period Purse works, the importance of talking about menstruation openly in society, and their sponsor, a menstruator program, which supplies products to homeless women in Toronto. Take a look. Hi, Dani. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on Late Night in Canada.
I'm really pumped to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you. So you are the social media manager of The Period Purse, yeah?
Yes. So I've been volunteering for The Period Purse for about 3.5 years now.
Awesome. And okay, so I mean, basically to start, I would love for you to tell me about The Period Purse, like what it's about, what you do, how it works, all that kind of fun stuff.
So The Period Purse is basically the first registered charity in Canada that actually fights for menstrual equity and against period poverty. So we operate kind of under 3 main pillars. One is, of course, outreach, which gets the products that people need in their hands. The next is advocacy, which works with all levels of government here in Canada to try and put a stop to period poverty, to provide period products to people for free, like they would toilet paper. And then the third is education. We want to educate people now, and we want to educate future generations so that people don't have to treat it as such a shameful or taboo topic. And for the people who are facing barriers accessing these items, there's just a little bit more awareness around it. And also there's a lot of really awesome products that are maybe more sustainable and produce less waste that do need a little bit of education around them. So with under those 3 kind of umbrella pillars is what we call them, we just talk about periods pretty much all the time.
Awesome. And you go into schools, right? Like you work with a whole bunch of different organizations.
So like I said, because we are the only registered charity in Canada, there are so many other amazing organizations all across the country and around the world that are doing similar things. So the education piece, we're getting into schools. We have people who actually have gotten the training and will do that kind of outreach, I guess. It's a lot of virtual stuff right now, as you can imagine. But yeah, we do have our menstruation nation program, which basically targets anyone from like, I guess, grade 5 all the way up to like post-secondary institutions.
To that point, in schools where I think when you're younger, actually, well, it's still such, just, you go up through life thinking that it's such a taboo subject. And why, in your own words, like, why is it so important to talk about periods openly in society?
It's funny because I feel like, for me, I don't even really think about it as being that taboo anymore. Just because I talk about it with my friends and stuff. But I will say, I did just watch an incredible documentary called Pandora's Box. And honestly, menstruators, non-menstruators, everyone should watch it. There are places here in Canada and all over the world where access is a huge problem. And because it is kind of a shameful, taboo topic, you know, you might not feel comfortable even talking to your parents about it. And I think the more we kind of get it out there and talk about it, the more people can feel comfortable. In this documentary, for example, there was a young woman who thought she had cancer because she just didn't know that she was bleeding or what that even meant. So it's stuff like that. I think there's a stat that's like, you know, half of people who menstruate don't realize that it's tied into your reproductive system. So really there's little to no education on menstruation. And that's, like I said, around the world, but here in Canada too, and something that's been made even worse by the pandemic.
Yeah, and to that point, I know you folks do an awesome program which is called Sponsor a Menstruator, and I think it's such a neat thing because it's an issue that doesn't get talked about a lot or thought about a lot, but it's so prevalent, and I'd love for you to kind of tell people about that.
Yeah, obviously, one of the big barriers is you know, being able to access things when you are, you know, struggling to make ends meet. Maybe you're experiencing marginalization or homelessness. So, you know, if it comes down to a choice between eating or getting a pack of tampons, usually, you know, you're going to buy some food. Even within the shelter system here in Canada, 89% of them do not actually have funds allocated to these items. And so that's where the period purse kind of fills that gap. And the Sponsor a Menstruator program is $15 a month. Obviously, when it comes to not-for-profits, those recurring donations are huge. So $15 a month is what we've kind of put out for one healthy period. So I can even show you what it looks like. This is like one healthy period.
Right.
So it's got a month's worth of tampons and pads. We include a little note. We include a new pair of underwear. In some cases, there's like sweet treats or other things like masks we've been doing a lot of as well. So yeah, so basically that's what one healthy period is. And that's kind of how we measure it. So yeah, for $15 a month, you can sponsor someone who's experiencing homelessness, marginalization, and you can help give them the tools that they need to have a healthy and safe and dignified period. Because obviously not having these items can lead to other health issues. And like I said, when you're getting into the reproductive system and you're getting into that kind of thing, you know, you just want to make sure that you're on top of it and that you're being healthy and that you've got, you know, access to clean items. And I'm tripping over my words a little bit because I'm trying not to like use words like hygienic. So it's not about like that I think periods are dirty, but there is obviously an issue when you don't have clean water or when you don't have access to toilet paper or a private washroom. Like there's just things that we take for granted.
Yeah.
And when you're on your period, you don't want to deal with any of that stuff. So it's something that I don't think a lot of people necessarily think about, but I do think more and more people are kind of becoming aware of this issue and what they can do to help.
Yeah, because these products are expensive as is.
Right?
Like even if you're not homeless, even if you're not marginalized, anything like that, like it's yeah, the prices of them are just crazy.
Yeah, and thankfully here in Canada, they're tax-free since 2015. But in a lot of places, there's millions of dollars to be made on the taxation of these products. So so it's something to look at too. And thankfully, there are a lot of organizations who are fighting to and the tax on tampons, although it totally should be done by now everywhere.
I mean, I think it should be free. I mean, I know that there are a lot of schools and countries advocating for basically free menstrual products, especially in schools.
And that's the thing, like, I never, thankfully, like, I will just establish this, like, I grew up in a, you know, middle-class home. Like, I never had to think about it. My mom, we had a box of tampons under the counter for when it was time. But imagine, you know, your family, and certainly we weren't loaded, but imagine like your family is maybe a little bit more conservative in that they don't openly talk about reproductive health or menstruation. You know, why would you? Maybe you're coming from a single parent home. Maybe, you know, it's hard enough for you to ask for money for things that you want as a typical student, let alone something that's so personal as a box of tampons or pads or reusable items. You know, I think because we're kind of far removed from that age, it's sort of easy to think like, well, just ask for a box of tampons, ask your friends. Like, it's not so taboo. But when you're that young and your body's going through those changes, like, that can be tough. And add, you know, the lack of access, the cost, all of that into the mix. And, you know, there's a lot of students that probably are going without or missing school or being unnecessarily embarrassed by a natural function that their body has. And that's, you know, over half the population.
As the social media coordinator for the Period Purse, like, what are some of the misconceptions that you come up against? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think two big ones that I see a lot. One is, obviously, periods are very wasteful. There's a lot of garbage. And that's something that we try to be really conscious of. And for me personally, like, sustainability is something that I'm trying to invite more into my life. And, you know, period products are a big, there's a lot of garbage there. So obviously there's some really amazing reusable products. They're more expensive, as you can imagine, upfront. In the long run, they can be cheaper. But there's also, you know, we get a lot of comments that are like, why don't you just provide marginalized menstruators with a Diva cup, for example? And, you know, menstrual cups are awesome. They're not a silver bullet for, you know, for ending period poverty. And the reasons are, you need access to clean water. You need a safe place to keep it. And you also need the education behind it. So a lot of people might be nervous on using one. They might have questions. So this is part of the Period Purse's kind of goals as well, is that the education piece happens as well when it comes to cups. So the conversation is kind of changing. We do have programs in which we've teamed up with Diva Cares and some other cup producers to actually acquire cups, give them to communities in need, and actually work with people in those communities who can help educate their populations on how to use them if they so wish. There's also, you know, things to consider, like people's past trauma. They might not want to even deal with a cup when it comes to that. So we just have to be mindful. And the big thing with the Period Purse, and one of the reasons why I love working with them, is because it comes down to personal choice. We know that periods can be very personal and can be very, you know, your own thing. So we want to respect a person's choice to do whatever they want with their body. We just want to provide those tools that can help them do that safely and do that with dignity.
Awesome. And if somebody wants to get involved with the Period Purse, like whether they'd like to volunteer or donate things or put you folks in contact with another organization, like, how can they do that? Do you guys take volunteers?
Yeah, actually, we something that's been really fun that we've been doing throughout the pandemic is these at-home period kits. So we've got an amazing storage unit in Etobicoke. It's Diamond Storage at 1460 the Queensway. So you can basically donate product there anytime. They have an amazing facility. You literally drive in if you have wheels, and like flag someone over, and they'll show you a bin with stuff that you can, you know, drop your stuff in. We also do these at-home kits. So basically we'll send you stuff and you can, you know, put together some of your own kits at home. And then just drop something. And then Yeah, we also have like it's May, so it's like Christmas for menstrual equity, because May 28th is Menstrual Health Day. So we're doing like the Great Bloody Run, which is, you know, if you can move 28 kilometers in 28 days and raise some funds for us. There's teams that are raising money for this right now. You'll find everything on our Instagram page, on our website, at the period first, or theperiodfirst.com. And then we've got, yeah, the sponsor a menstruator is a great way to get involved. Mini drives are awesome. If you've got some neighbors or friends or family members, it's a great way to like stay connected with people, even if you can't really see them. Raise some funds, gather some products. I mean, even if you have like excessive optimum points, like go to Shoppers and use them on period products, and then, you know, donate those. There's so many things you can do, and so many, like, innovative people working in this space, and yeah, there's stuff going on all the time. So part of my job is to share all that stuff with our followers and with our supporters, and it's huge. Like, I will just kind of plug a little bit here. So far in the 4 years that the Period Purse has been around, we've donated over 78,000 healthy periods, and that's like, you know, 1.8 million tampons and pads. We're in over 350 locations across Canada. We donate to Indigenous communities. You know, 1,500 menstrual cups, plus the education behind all of that. So these are some big numbers. And so far in 2021, our goal was to give away 30,000 healthy periods. That's in the whole year. And we've already beaten that in 4 months. So if that doesn't tell you that the need is great, if that doesn't tell you that the support is there, I don't know what does. So it's really exciting to be a part of this right now. And it's also really eye-opening, because I think it is something that you might think isn't happening here, but it very much is.
My final question to you is a question I like to ask, which is, what is your favorite part of your work with this organization? Or like, what are you most proud of?
That's a good question. I think I've always been, well, not always, but I think once I kind of became aware that this was an issue, it's just kind of getting to know the other people that are also passionate about this stuff. And I think what's been really exciting to see is, you know, when I first started out, people were like kind of divisive on it. Like, some people were like really grossed out. I remember, like, when I was living in Peterborough, I had like this pad party. And people, like, I remember even some women were just like, we don't want to talk about that. That's not, you know, that's gross.
I know some people who still don't, like, guys who still can't even say the word periods. So,
oh my God, a gorilla. But I mean, it's one of those things. And, you know, I worked in like in media, and I would pitch stories all the time. Like, you know, here's some stuff that's going on with period poverty or menstrual equity. And it was just like, no, hard no, no one reads that. No one's interested in that. It doesn't get the clicks. And now I'm seeing a lot more media companies, I'm seeing a lot more news outlets reach out, and they want to talk about it, and they want to cover this important issue. And I think it's one of those things that is kind of like a cornerstone in the equity and equality movement. It's you know, why is it that we don't have free period products in every bathroom in the country? Well, maybe it's because men have been making the decisions for all of these years. So it is, I think that's one of my favorite parts, is to see these changes and to be like, wow, you know what, a couple years ago, people, like you said, and even today, we're afraid to even utter the word period on national TV. And it's now getting that kind of coverage, which is going to, you know, jumpstart people to get involved and, you know, put pressure on our provincial and our federal and our municipal government to provide these things, make these changes, and talk about it.
Awesome. Well, congratulations with your work. Thank you for your work. And thank you for coming on today to talk to me about it.
Well, thanks for having me. And yeah, I've heard this so many times this week just because I've watched a few panels on this, but every single person is like, I could talk about this for hours. And I was just about to say that.
Great. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much, Danny.
Thanks, Claire.
I want to thank you all for watching and supporting the show these past 4 months. We've turned politicians into bats, watched Dumbledore try to keep his school safe, chatted with scientists and politicians and artists and activists, and, most importantly, come together over just how shitty I am at Photoshop. It's been my pleasure to bring Canada's news to you in the only way that I know how, full of rage, inappropriate language, and constant references to my cat. Oh, and what's this? Is this another love letter for Doug? Could it be the final love letter for Doug? Oh, I'm sure that it must be something pithy, something mature, something that incredibly witty that sums up Ontario's premier in a way that really cuts to the core of who he is and what he's done. And dear Doug, go fuck yourself. I mean, yeah. And so for the last time this season, this has been Late Night in Canada. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, get vaccinated, and I'll hug you on the other side. Wait. Nope, not finished yet. One last thing. Fuck that hat.